So, I wanted to follow up on my comments about Russ Dizdar in light of all of the pushback I've gotten from people I've never seen on my channel before. Loads and loads of comments keep coming in, and some of them are from, sincere people who don't agree with me or don't understand what I'm saying or are trying to, cut Dizdar a break. And that's fine, and I, expected that. But what I didn't expect was, I didn't expect to get, nasty, irrational comments from loads of people, loads of new people, to my channel who are, speak as if, what I'm saying doesn't even make sense. There's not even a valid argument, on my part whatsoever. They don't understand at all where I'm coming from. And they seem to, there's a trend where they keep trying to insinuate that I don't even know God, that I'm not a believer, I'm not saved. Weird stuff, real hateful stuff. The most recent one, insinuated that I was programmed or something, and that I should probably contact Russ again. But it was, the tone was real, malevolent, right? So this does not bode well for Russ Dizdar, in my opinion, because there's an art to detecting troll comments, comments from people that, aren't necessarily sincere, but perhaps fulfilling an assigned role in terms of the comments they leave. And honestly, the trolls I've gotten from my Johnny Depp video seem a little bit more authentic, at least. And I wouldn't even say that they're necessarily paid trolls. They might just, anybody that in 2019 still worships a celebrity enough to go on YouTube and defend them, when they have never met them in their life, those people are pretty out there as it is. So I can imagine those people actually being nasty and accusatory toward me. But the people that are coming to Russ Dizdar's defense by just saying things that are way out of line about me in comments, those people, I can't really imagine that they're sincere, because they're supposedly Christian and they supposedly know about all these things, and they supposedly are aware that, some people in the so-called truth movement, people, prominent people that, give talks and have podcasts like Russ Dizdar, that it's not unreasonable for someone like me to speculate that somebody like that might actually be an agent or an operative, right? So these people that are attacking me, they're coming from a place that it just doesn't seem reasonable to me at all, or realistic in terms of them actually thinking what they're saying. Because whether or not you agree with my conclusions about Russ Dizdar, and I understand, I don't have proof. I'm not even saying I know for sure what his deal is. But you can't say to me that I have no right to speculate these things and cast doubt on his authenticity, because basically what he did, it would be like a doctor telling somebody they've never actually examined over the phone that just based on family history and maybe a few vague symptoms, something, which, by the way, nobody, that I spoke to on Russ's team pointed out a single thing, actually about me or my behavior, from what they could tell over the phone, that seemed, like a symptom of MK Ultras. I didn't have anything like that. I don't have missing time, nothing like that. It was entirely based upon the fact that, I am, bloodline, and that, my best friend and her family had targeted me and my children for programming because they knew about my ancestry. And, to me, that could just as easily prove that I'm not programmed, because that was the problem. That was why they targeted us, because we were bloodline and we didn't get the the family inheritance, this horrible demonic programming that they, insist on subjecting people like me to. So basically, Russ and his team told me that I most likely am dying of cancer. That's what it would be like. A doctor telling you over the phone that you're most likely dying of cancer without examining you, and then endlessly putting you off in terms of actually, verifying this hypothesis by actually examining you. So somebody that you trust and you believe to be the foremost expert in cancer in all the world tells you that you're most likely dying of cancer. And by the way, it's worse than that, because it wasn't about me. I didn't care about me. It was about my children, right? And my unborn child, which, they tend to get, sacrificed horribly in these cults that they were telling me I was most likely a part of. And that, if that were true, I would have no way of knowing, because I would be programmed. My husband would be programmed. He would, we would both be completely in on it and unable to access that part of our brain to where we'd be consciously aware of it. Basically the cult altars would get triggered, and then we would go about, horribly raping and torturing our little baby girls, regularly, on a regular basis, and allowing, a whole cult to do it. And, you never know when those children are going to be, on the chopping block, because we know that they do actually, kill some of their own children, whichever ones are deemed expendable in that way. And the ones that are considered ideal for maybe like a leadership role or something later on in life, those, they're protected to some degree, but they're horribly raped and tortured as children. And so this is what he was telling me I most likely was participating in, while refusing to actually verify that one way or another for something like a year throughout my entire pregnancy. And I did not call him asking whether I was that wasn't why I even called. So do you understand how inappropriate and unprofessional and reckless it is to be telling people over the phone that you haven't examined, and however he does, because by the way, they would never let me in on their little secret in terms of how they actually determine this one way or the other. But it was some magical thing that would happen in person only. And then, despite being so close to me and despite me being perfectly available for upwards of a year, and staying in contact with them, that was, and by the way, it's not that I had to have Russ there. Other people on his team do these assessments, supposedly. So somebody could have done something. But if they couldn't, then they had absolutely no business telling me that over the phone, one way or the other. In fact, I would say that it's criminal, just about, to make those kind of diagnoses or, even speculations over the phone when people contact you for help, especially, women with children. Because can you imagine the kind of things that could have gone wrong if I were, more unstable or, emotional? If I believed what they told me, because I didn't believe it. It just bothered me for a long time. If I had believed them, if I were that gullible, I think it would be within reason to imagine I could have ended up in a situation where I lost custody of my children by just being so crazy and paranoid, making accusations toward my family, who, by the way, were also, insinuated to be programmed, because if I was, then they had to be, because that's how I got that way. And, my husband, I think people who haven't actually dealt with this MK Ultra thing in real life, up close and personal, like with somebody that they care about, don't understand the gravity of somebody telling you that you're probably a victim of it. It totally guts your reality. Just to even wonder guts your reality, because you are told that you cannot consciously determine one way or the other whether you're a part of this evil thing or not, and that you're pretty much helpless, and that if you are, a victim of this, most likely everybody that you love, everything that's dear to you, is a part of it also, and that they are doing the most unimaginably horrible, evil things to you and your children. And that's what they were telling me about my family, about my husband, about me. over the phone. And because it had become a reality in my life, because I had dealt with one of these victims, and I had found out that I went 30 years very, very close to this family and very close to this girl without realizing what they were, it was entirely plausible to me that I could possibly not realize it in my own life and my own family. Because I saw how insidious it is, how subtle, how cunning. And it took every ounce of faith I had, newfound faith in the Lord, and every bit of guidance from the Holy Spirit to get to a place where I could stand on my own 2 feet and know that, like, that's not true. I know who I am, you know, and and I know who my family is, and I certainly know who my husband is. And, you know, it didn't take too long, because well before I actually stopped contacting them, you know, I had already concluded that at the very least, in my case, they were full of shit. And that I must have got them on, you know, an off day, or like, an off year. But I still was curious about them and about Russ, and so that's why I kept contacting them. You know, at that point I became a little suspicious. My husband was very suspicious, and he told me pretty quickly, like, not to put any credence into what these people say, and that I shouldn't be trusting these people just because they're held up in the YouTube truth community. And he was right. But at first I was paranoid enough to wonder, well, that's what he would say if he's a cult. If he's, you know, if it's just like some programmed cult member, he would say that. That's what he would say. And that's the kind of thoughts that go through your head when you're wondering if you're a Luciferian programmed multiple. It's very, very traumatic. And the worst part about it is wondering if you are abusing your own children and you're just not aware of it, right? And that's what every person who ever has to, you know, sort this out in their own life would have to confront and look at. And, you know, there's just absolutely no reason to think that about my kids, but that's what they were telling me, right? And that's, you know, I just hope that reasonable, sincere people who are listening to me understand that I'm not out of line at all being irate about this, because it's really, you know, it's not even about me and my case, because we're okay, you know, and I'm strong enough to where, you know, I could get over this, and I could sort this out myself. But there's a lot of people that aren't like that, and I just shudder to think the kind of people, you know, who contact him, who are vulnerable. Here's the thing. It was malicious what they did. I can't actually figure out a way to explain what they did without suspecting some level of malice involved. Because if they are, you know, let's say that they are operatives. Let's say that they are, you know, disinformation agents, and some type of, you know, they're like a trick, right? To where people that are trying to get out of the cult or whatever, they contact Russ, and he has their trust and their confidence, and what he does is he reprograms them or channels them back to the proper cult authorities, you know, to actually shore up their programming, because obviously it's on the fritz if they are questioning it or aware of it whatsoever. So a lot of people, you know, are at risk if I don't at least, you know, speak my tiny little piece about my experience with him, if he is indeed, you know, one of these reprogrammers. And I'm not saying that I know that for sure. He could just be a grifter, a jerk, whatever. But I just feel like it's very malicious to say something like that to a pregnant woman over the phone for over a year. I don't see how it could just be plain old irresponsibility. If you're too busy, you could just, you know, not say that and just say, we'll have to get to you when we can, or whatever. But you know, to me it seemed like they knew that I knew stuff. And the best thing they could do with me, since I wasn't programmed, was try to destabilize me some other way. I mean, maybe I would screw my life up, get my kids taken away, something like that. Because if I am, you know, if I have information, like all the information I gave them, and I'm not part of the cult, then I'm a threat. If they are indeed, you know, working for the cult. Anyway, I'm almost out of time. I hope that makes sense. Let me know. Hopefully I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.